Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by TJ Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
Welcome to Dove Valley Deep Divers, everyone. I'm going to be your host once again tonight as Lance Sanderson is out back to being a caveman. Joining me again is Mr. Carl Dumler. Carl, how's it going, man?
Things are good. Just kind of cruising along in life and still riding high on the last Broncos win and excited for another hopefully good game this weekend for the Broncos. And I'm seeing some already predicting a 42-7 Broncos win. That would be wonderful to see them 2 weeks in a row blow out teams like that. That would be crazy. But no, it is. It's exciting that we actually can have a little bit of confidence in this team and getting to talk tonight about it and get prepared for this game because some crazy things happened today.
Yeah, it'd be great to see Denver close out their NFC opponents by sweeping them. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm hoping for a win. I mean, obviously, of course, Denver wins a great thing, but being able to sweep a division is always a great thing. And Paul, thank you for joining us for your birthday. Happy birthday, Paul. I hope you have a good evening tonight. And whatever it is you wanted for your birthday, I hope you get it.
Listen up, Broncos country. TickPick should be your first choice to buy football tickets because they save fans money by never charging any service fees ever. TickPick is the exclusive ticketing partner for the Huddle Up podcast and the Blue Wire Network.
Denver Broncos football is finally back, and there's no need to exhaust yourself searching all over the internet to find Broncos tickets anymore. Because TickPick, that's TickPick, is the original no-fee ticket site and the only one you'll ever need as your go-to for all NFL tickets. TickPick got rid of all those awful service fees that the other ticket sites charge, which lets them guarantee the best prices on all of their NFL tickets. Don't believe it? If you can find better prices for the same seats on another ticket site, TickPick will give you 110% of the difference in the purchase price.
That's right, guys. When we were searching for tickets for the MHH meet and greet for Week 3 at home, Broncos versus Jets, TickPick had us locked down. So visit tickpick.com/huddle today and use the promo code HUDDLE to save $10 on your first order of Broncos tickets.
Speaking of stars, we've got Andrew Lamp coming in saying, "Evening, fellas. Hope everyone had a wonderful day." It's been a long day for me. Pretty exhausted, but other than that, it's been pretty good. And Andrew, thank you for joining us, and I hope you've had a wonderful day as well, and a wonderful weekend too.
Yeah.
And then Travis Weber coming in with some stars as well, and I'm pretty sure Travis is a guy who's consistently at the top for the raffles. So, Travis, thank you for your continued support for all the shows. Anyways, tonight, obviously, we're going to be talking about the temporary change at play caller, or at least what seems to be temporary change at play calling, with Pat Shurmur not being able to call the game this week, most likely not be able to call the game anyways. And Mike Shula is reported going to be the guy stepping in. And so I'm kind of intrigued by this. I've always felt Mike Shula, I mean, he's not a great offensive coordinator, but I like what he managed to do with the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton. Got 3 of the best years out of Cam Newton's career from him, including the MVP campaign. His timing with play calls, he really knows how to call plays to benefit the talent that he has. And I'll be very interested to see what differences there are between his play calling style and Pat Shurmur's. I wouldn't expect too much of a difference because they've worked together for so long. And plus the game plan's pretty much set, but it's just going to be the timing on calls that I think will be the biggest difference. Carl?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Shula has proven over the years he's usually a pretty creative play caller. But like I said, there's sometimes the timing side of things, but we've made that argument against Shurmur as well. That there's times where some of his his choices at different moments in the game make zero sense. And so I do think they've learned a lot from each other and have very similar setups. If you look at their breakdowns of formations, they run a lot of the same formations. They like a lot of 3 wide for both of them, but they also aren't afraid to go to 21 personnel with 2 tight ends. So it'll be interesting, especially with Noah Fant back this week. Get Albert Okwuegbunam. Do they do a lot more 21 personnel, or do they keep with their 3 wide receivers? I see we got Cody W coming in here with a super chat as well, saying any word on both Patrick's playing. I'm pretty sure Tim Patrick's going to play. Patrick Surtain, have you heard anything on him? I know he's listed as questionable.
Yeah, they're both listed as questionable, which means that for the most part, it's likely to play. I believe questionable is like 75% chance of playing is kind of how they the percentages they kind of give for that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously with the 3 wide receivers the Broncos have, you really don't want to take them off the field. It's why the Broncos want to run that 11 personnel on the field, because that's where your talent is. Not saying the tight ends aren't talented, but those 3 wide receivers, if you give them great quarterback play, they could be up there with any 3 wide receivers in the NFL when you're looking at any other teams out there. And Gary Lees Palmer coming in here saying, good evening, Eric and Carl, go Broncos. Right back at you, Gary. Really appreciate that and appreciate the stars and just everybody being here on a Friday evening, getting ready to be excited for another Broncos game. And, you know, it's kind of weird Friday getting this news of switch at coordinator, but it really doesn't make me that nervous. Just because they do have a lot of guys that have been coordinators in the past. Modkins as well has been an offensive coordinator. So it sounds like they're going to lean into him sometimes with trying to figure things out and kind of make this a group effort. And so I'm just not too worried about the offense skipping a beat because their offensive coordinator is not there anymore.
Yeah, and the fact that they're going to lean in on the experience of Curtis Modkins and Mike Munchak as well to help out Mike Shula, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit better week when it came to the play calling. And it's not that Pat Shurmur's been terrible. I know that he likes to be ripped for it, but his play calling for most of the season really hasn't been terrible. There's been some very, very questionable decisions. That whole, the last half or that last drive against Washington had a questionable call in there. But a lot of the issues really fall down onto execution with this team. And so Pat Shurmur's done well, but I think that we can see it a little bit better. I think that they're going to do a much better job at calling what their guys want to do. I wouldn't be surprised if the running game is a little bit more condensed, and it seemed to be a little bit more condensed against the Dallas Cowboys, which helped them out. So I like that aspect of it with this. I'm with you. I'm not super worried about this. The Philadelphia Eagles defense isn't the best. They really struggle against the running game. Javon Hargrave, who's was a monster to start the season as a pass rusher, has really fallen off of late, getting only 7 pressures with no sacks over the last 4 games. Fletcher Cox has been just completely handcuffed in the defensive scheme there. Josh Sweat's been okay. So it's been all right, but their run defense is really struggling. It's one of the worst in the NFL. They are, I believe, 28th in success rate against them, almost allowing every other running play to be a successful running play against them. So I would expect them to lean heavily on the running game, especially trying to build off of what we just got from the Dallas Cowboys game. Travis Weber came in, I'm assuming with some stars, which if not, either way, doesn't matter, Travis. You're always a great supporter for us. Says, good evening, Eric, Carl, Broncos country. I'm curious as to if they will follow Shurmur's plays and scripts, or will they run their own stuff? As I mentioned, the game plan's pretty much set. They're not going to go in and do a short turnaround. They've been practicing off this game plan. They've been practicing this script. They're going to still run that. I think that after we get past the script, we'll start to see a little bit more creativity on their end, but it's not going to be stuff that they haven't already practiced, not stuff that they're not used to. It just might be a little more, for lack of a better way to put it, compact in terms of what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. And Travis, I really appreciate the stars coming in once again. Always you're always showing up for us. Appreciate that a lot. And this is a great question here. And I'm with Eric. Usually those first plays have already been scripted. And so I don't think Shula is probably going to break off from that because, like you said, they've been practicing that. I think you're going to see maybe a little bit of creativity in some of the run plays that they're going to call as the game progresses, because Shula, that's one thing I really appreciated when he was, especially in Carolina. Now it helps when you have a running quarterback, but I think they might even use that with Teddy Bridgewater a little bit. you might see a quarterback designed run play. They haven't really done it a whole lot this year at all. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater has taken off running a couple times, but for the most part, it's just been pretty traditional running style. I think you can use that against Philadelphia here, where they're going to really sell out to try to stop Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, because, I mean, obviously they're coming off a 190-yard game last week, and I think you can kind of do one of those little sneaks out. I was watching the top 100 run plays by quarterbacks, and do you know what play was number 100?
Was it the Peyton Manning one against the Dallas Cowboys?
Yep. You know, when you've done something over and over and over again, teams just start believing that's exactly what you're going to keep doing. And that's when all of a sudden you just throw a little bit of a wrinkle in there just to make them have to respect it. And so I could see something like that, where you just get a little something extra in there that might catch him off guard. And maybe Shula's been having a couple plays in the back of his mind just in case something would happen, because we've had information that Shurmur's job was starting to become very hot. His hot seat was hot. And so I'm sure Shula in the back of his mind was kind of going, what can I do different? And he's starting to get a few plays. And this is his opportunity to go out there and maybe throw in a few plays that make people at least have to respect what he brings to the table, and get a few teams, if it's not the Broncos thinking about it, at least some other teams thinking about it for him. But all right, we got Andrew Baker coming in here. Really appreciate this with the stars as well. What's up, Eric, Carl, and Broncos country? Let's get this dub. Hope Pat has a slow but healthy recovery. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag DB for life. I really appreciate that, Andrew. And yeah, I'm hoping the Broncos get the dub this weekend. This is a big one. If you get this one, you're right back in the thick of things. And then all of a sudden you got the divisional games. You can really go out there and win this division, because, I mean, it's really up for grabs. Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, none of them are looking that great right now. Really, all three of them should have lost this last week. If they were playing better teams, they would have easily lost. They got a little bit lucky of catching some breaks of, obviously, Packers not having Rodgers, and Eagles making a couple mistakes down the stretch there. But yeah, I think this is a really good one for the Broncos. The weaknesses of the Eagles set up really well with the strengths of what the Broncos can do, especially on offense.
Yeah, and one thing with Mike Shula too that should obviously help drive him to do a good job this week is, in a way, he's auditioning for another job. I mean, it's expected. There's still a slight chance the coaching staff's able to keep their job, but it's expected they get fired. So he's going to be doing coaching to try and get an offensive coordinator position elsewhere, or even another quarterback coach spot. So there's obviously the pressure on him. Cody W with a $2 donation says, do you see any free agents coming in at the bye week? It really depends on what happens against Philadelphia. Denver could look to make a few moves, but injuries, I think, are the biggest factor here. They're expecting to get Bradley Chubb back here before too long. I believe it's still they're still looking at 3 or 4 weeks or so, but still, I mean, not too far down the road. They hope to get Garrett Bowles and Bobby Massey back after the bye week. So they're starting to get the, for lack of a better way, the reinforcements, the guys coming off of injured reserve. They got that with Jerry Jeudy. So it really depends on what's going to continue happening going forward, what injuries occur. Hopefully none, even though somebody said it earlier, the Broncos seem cursed, and they really do. But it's so many variables at this point that hard to say for sure. I'm sure they will look around, but probably for the most part, I wouldn't expect anything super big. Maybe a couple depth guys here and there.
Right. I mean, like I said, there's so many guys that are banged up and injured right now. You're really just hoping to get them back healthy and have this team after the bye week looking as healthy as they have all season since week one. I mean, because you also have Ojemudia that's supposed to be coming back, that now he's in sick bug protocol, that hopefully after the bye that he would be out of that. You got a few other guys that are still on that list as well. It's been going through the Bronco locker room, unfortunately. And so once you get those guys back, you feel pretty darn good about this roster, really. And so they just got to survive this week and hope that they can get to after the bye week and push here for the end. All right, we got Chase Weldner coming in here with the super chat. Big if, but what if Pat is able to keep his job? Well, I mean, this is I think there's times where, one, a play fails, we blame the offensive coordinator pretty quick. And I think this is where you really got to watch the actual all 22 film to be able to see, was this an execution issue or was this just a really stupid call at a certain moment? Like the North Carolina Pitt game last night. It was 4th and 4 or 4th and 2. I can't remember what play it was, but for North Carolina. And what do? They run a go route on 4th and 2 it was 4th and 4. That's right. And they ran a go route. And to me, that play has very little success. I mean, I know you're kind of trying to hope you can catch the defense off guard by running something like that, but it just was not a great play. You run your best play that gets you 5 yards because you have to get that first down in that moment to get back in that game. And, that's just bad play calling. There's been some plays that have been great play calls where the Broncos just have executed poorly. It was wide open for big plays, and it just was not executed well. So I don't think Pat's as bad as some people in Broncos country make him out to be. I'm not saying he's a star as a coordinator by any means. I'd say he's more middle of the pack when it comes to play calling.
He's one of those types of coordinators that you're okay having if your guys are executing up front and able to do their jobs. He's not going to wow you with his play designs all that often, but he's also a guy that you just avoid trying to find an upgrade over either. Or you don't avoid doing that because he's just all right. Like there's going to be issues with him. There's going to be issues with just about any offensive play caller. I mean, just look at what's going on in San Francisco right now with all the stuff with Kyle Shanahan. There's been issues with him going on and seems like the dam's starting to break. And so it's always going to happen. There's always going to be issues there, but Pat Shurmur is just, again, he's just all right. Some of the issues that are there are complaints that are made are valid, and some of them aren't. A lot of play calls. I mean, going back and watching it, all 22, being able to see all the whole field and everything, and it's really got to figure out: is it an execution issue or was it a terrible play design? There was a play last year that was, or a couple years ago, it was the Rick Scangarello. It was that run play to Noah Fant. That wasn't an execution thing. That was just a terribly designed play.
Yeah. And then he kept running it like 3 more times. Yeah. And
Rick Scangarello decided to stay with that. So
yeah,
it is what it is. And then Lando Leak says, what can the defense do to stop Jalen Hurts? Keep him in the pocket, force him to make difficult reads, and not let him run. I mean, that's where he's most comfortable at. And even just getting out of the pocket and looking around going to try to make a play with that, even if he doesn't take off to run, is he can be a little bit more dangerous, especially with some of the weapons that they have. So you want to keep him in the pocket, get pressure on him, and play tight in your coverage unit.
Yep, exactly. This has got to be one of your more disciplined games on defense.
Yeah.
Those edge guys. And this is where I asked that question earlier this week with Eric, or with Nick, of who do you want starting at edge? Because they have to be able to hold that edge and not let him get around the corner, because that's where he gets dangerous. That's where everything breaks down. That's where the big plays happen. All right, we got Eclipse coming in here. I love this. Never fickle on the nickel. Big pickle, Erick Trickel. Peace and love from Philly, and happy Friday, Broncos country. That's poetic, and I love it.
Eclipse, it's been a while since I've seen you on Friday night, man. It's great to have you back. I mean, there for a while, it was every single week seeing in here and seeing that little poem of yours, and always brings a smile to my face. So it's great to have you back tonight and being able to see it again. I mean, it's a mood changer, really. Anyways, we're going to be kind of switching over this conversation to a little bit, and you kind of touched on part of why I want to talk about it is what edge this week. Well, we're looking at it, and there's some obvious needs that the Broncos have after the season, one of them being at edge, but they also have some young players, and depending on what these young players do over the remaining 8 weeks can really change how they view these needs. I mean, looking at the edge specifically, well, Jonathan Cooper, Malik Reed is a restricted free agent after this year. Bradley Chubb has 1 more year of cost control. Malik Reed at most has 1 more year if they tender him and he ends up coming back on the tender. Could extend him as well. Stephon Weatherly is a free agent after this year. So there's a need at edge. How big of a need this is could be impacted by Jonathan Cooper's play. Now, I'll get my thoughts out here real quick. And I think that no matter what, edge is going to remain a huge need. They just don't have a Batman, so to speak, at edge. I mean, Bradley Chubb I've always viewed him as more of a Robin type. Even last year when he had to be the Batman, it kind of cemented my thoughts that he's more of a Robin. Jonathan Cooper, I mean, I know it's great that he got his first 2 sacks and he really beat up on the Cowboys offensive line, but he was going against Terrence Steele, who was the backup right tackle for the Dallas Cowboys that got thrust into starting, played terribly there, and then had to get moved over because Smith was out and they got Lyle Collins back. So it's kind of take that with a grain of salt. And he did all right against the Cleveland Browns as well, but his run defense has been consistently bad. So for me, remains a huge need. I think they've got 2 guys that are great as number 3, number 4 pass rushers, but they got to get that number 1 guy.
Yeah, and I mean, this always comes back to the age-old question, how many is too many pass rushers? Trick question. There is never a number that's, you can never have too many. And so you're always looking to upgrade that position, even if you have great guys. I mean, look when the Broncos had DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. They wouldn't use a first-round pick on Shane Ray. Now, yes, he didn't work out completely. I mean, he still had a few moments there, especially that Super Bowl run. And you had Shaq Barrett. And I mean, but you love that. You have depth. You have guys that can come in and actually make plays. But like you said, you need that alpha that's going to really make teams have to take notice. And you heard it today of Tampa Bay was asked, Bruce Arians, hey, are you scared of what the Rams are doing with bringing in OBJ? And he goes, well, I'm not afraid yet, but he said, I'm more worried about Von Miller. Because, I mean, he still brings that kind of attention just with his name being out there. And he still brings some great pass rushing ability. And so we'll see how he does the rest of the season for them. And obviously going to be cheering for them a little bit. But I did want to make sure that we got the stars there for Mark Johnson. Really appreciate that coming in there. And now we got Antonio coming in here with the 1999 super chat. Really appreciate that. Hey guys, happy to catch the pod. I'll be at the game on Sunday and hopefully we get the W. Predict the Bronco of the game. Hashtag Broncos country. So I guess, I mean, it's hard to not want to pick one of the running backs because of how bad they are at stopping the run. But I think this is going to be Jerry Jeudy's game. The Philadelphia, just watching them, I'm still trying to figure out sometimes what they're doing on defense because it makes almost zero sense. It's almost like they're going into prevent defense. Just everybody drops straight back on pass plays. And the short and intermediate area of the field, especially over the middle, is wide open. I mean, you could just run those 5-yard ends over and over again. And, I mean, you could just do that all game, and you'd win. And that's Jerry Jeudy right there. Get the ball in his hands, let him take a 5-yard play, turn it into a 30-yard play. And so I could see him having, a 150-yard game just because they're going to leave him open on a lot of different occasions.
Yeah, this is tough for me because I really want to say Quinn Miners just because, I think that he can have a really good game, but he's going to be going against Hargrave and Fletcher Cox, so I think he might struggle a little bit. Jerry Jeudy is one that I would consider. I'm going to say Noah Fant. I think the little bit of time away is going to help kind of reset the mental aspect for him. And for similar reasons too, with how the Philadelphia Eagles played their defense, I think he's going to get his chances, his opportunities, and I think he's going to be able to go and be a pretty consistent receiving piece. Hopefully he's able to step it up as a blocker, and because that's really been the issue with him this year. It hasn't been his play as a receiver outside of fighting for those extra yards, but we want to see him step up there. Miguel came in and says, "Sup from New Mexico, just tuned in. Do you think it would benefit to keep Purcell on the bench until needed?" Honestly, yes. I mean, I talked about this, or I did an article about this a couple weeks ago, and Purcell, with what they're asking him to do, is a little bit problematic for not having Alexander Johnson out there behind him, because he just opens up so much space for Alexander Johnson to come downhill and make a play. Baron Browning still has work to do before he can really hit that level coming downhill. Kenny Young maybe could do it, but Deshaun Williams just does a much better job of eating up space, eating up blocks, and just staying more disciplined on the inside instead of leaving his gap open like Purcell does. So I think, yes, I think that you should rotate them more a little bit depending on the down and distance and situation. But I'd be looking at Deshaun Williams a little bit more than Mike Purcell. And unfortunately, nothing against Mike Purcell. He may be approaching his last few games with the Broncos too, because they can get out of his deal after this year with relative ease.
Yeah, and I think you've also seen, especially the Fangio's system, and of course Kolar in the background doing work with these interior defensive linemen. They keep producing guys out of nothing. Other teams' cast-offs become pretty good playmakers for the Broncos on the interior there, and so I think you can get away with maybe getting a little cheaper there, and maybe finding another guy that can, like I said, maybe fit that discipline where it doesn't have to go out there and make the plays, because Purcell did make some plays in the backfield. I mean, it was either kind of a really big play or the other team had this wide open hole to really run through where he, kind of abandoned the gap there. But and Mark Johnson coming back in with more stars, really appreciate that. And I love the face mask there with the Mile High Huddle, looking good. Just always appreciate seeing that.
Now, our Powell came in with a question that's going off of what we were just talking about with Cooper and Nita edge. And he asks, which round, first or second, would you go get an edge? And for me, it really depends on how the board falls. There are 3, maybe 4 guys. If one of the Michigan guys does declare, there would be 4 guys that I think are worth taking in the top 15 at this moment. If they fall to you, you take one. I mean, they're just play such a valued position. They have so much potential. Like, you just take that. Outside of them, I'd go second. And it just depends on how the board falls for me.
Yeah. And we don't know who's going to declare yet. And we don't know where the Broncos are going to be picking. They could be clear anywhere from about pick 10 to pick 25. Maybe even higher if they get in the playoffs and get going crazy. But so it's kind of hard to figure out in that range who they're going to be close to. Offensive tackle, that right tackle spot is going to be a huge need as well. And there's some great offensive tackles in this draft. So that's another position. And obviously there might be another position that some people might be looking at, quarterback, that's depending where they're picking at and who's available. You might see them go that direction too. End of round 1, I'm not going to have as much problem with the Broncos deciding to kind of go that direction. It's not as big of an investment as, yes, you're using a first round pick on a quarterback, but it's not like you can't just move on if you realize this guy's not going to work out. It's not like a top 5 pick where you're going, oh my gosh, we have put our entire franchise on this guy turning into something. I think there's a lot of options of where the Broncos can go. Defensive line, if they lose a couple guys, they could go there. Linebacker, because there's 3 guys, Kenny Young, Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell, that are going to be hitting the market. Cornerback is a really underrated need, depending on how maybe Ojemudia looks, if they're going to bring back Fuller or Callahan. There's some needs after this season. There's a reason the Broncos have like $72 million in cap after the season, because they have a lot of people hitting the market from their team.
And Gary Lees Palmer comes in with some stars. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate that. And of course, as always, we appreciate all of your guys' consistent support for all the shows. Now, you mentioned offensive tackle being a big need. Now, that's a position that I think that depending on how these last few games go, it may become one of those things where, like, all right, if a guy falls to me, great. If not, I'm not going to force a pick here. And it depends on how Calvin Anderson does. Travis Weber came in and said that Calvin Anderson says he's looking to take Bull's starting job. Do you think he has a legitimate chance? Not for Bull's job, but I think he has a legitimate chance to be that future at right tackle. And that's where the big need is. If he doesn't step up and play well, they have a huge need to go and finally find an answer, a long-term answer at the right tackle position. But if he steps up, then they can just go and look at finding a swing tackle that can compete with Anderson for the job, with having Anderson as that potential, starter going forward. It's not a thing where they have to go get one. So it's not one where you go get one in the top 100 or where, however high. So he's one of those guys, much like Cooper, that depending on how his play goes, he can really change how much of a need it is. And at corner, there's another one. And there's a guy that, for me, you didn't mention that I think could be be one of those guys that, again, lessens the need. And that's Nate Hairston. That nickel corner, with how he's been playing well when he's been out there on the field, And he there for a couple weeks, he was playing over Kyle Fuller in the nickel, and then for the Cowboys game, they moved Fuller inside, and there's a chance that we get to see Hairston this week against the Eagles. He's been playing well, and if he continues to grow, then he could potentially be that answer for post Bryce Callahan, Michael Ujimudi, who you did mention. If depending on when he gets on the field, if he does, he could be one of the options to help out on the boundary, kind of replace that Kyle Fuller, because they'll still have Patrick Stan and Ronald Darby. So, like, it's not going from a super strong corner class on corner room on paper to a weak one. It's still going to be a very solid room. So multiple guys at these positions that, again, you can just change how much of a need that the Denver has depending on how they perform the rest of the season.
Oh, for sure. You're right. I mean, these young guys are getting their opportunity because of injuries. And I mean, Tom Brady's the greatest example of a guy when he's given an opportunity that goes out there and plays at a high level, and boom, now he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Maybe go down. I hate saying this, but maybe the greatest quarterback of all time. Maybe.
Yeah.
I still give it to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's the smartest quarterback that's ever played by far. And I think he's the least scheme dependent quarterback because he is the scheme. But we're not going to get into that discussion here tonight, but you're right. No, that these guys are getting their opportunity with other guys. And if they can go out there and perform, then as a coach, that's what I'm telling them. You're going out there to play for your job next year. Make us not have to go draft your position early on, and make us believe that you can become a star or at least a quality starter for us moving forward. They can do that, then yeah, it's nice that you don't have to worry about those positions. And Calvin Anderson had a great game this last week, really. Even when he messed up a couple times, he did well to recover. That was the part that really surprised me, was because there's a couple times like he tripped over his own feet a couple times and he still made the block.
Yeah.
That was fun to watch.
One of his best plays was he got tripped up, I want to say over Dalton Reisner's feet, and the defensive end just kind of put him on his knees, and he still sealed the edge and went for, I think, like a 15-yard gain, but to Javonte Williams around the edge. And it was just one of those great plays. He allowed one pressure on this game, on the game. And honestly, his game against Dallas was really the best game at left tackle we've gotten all season over Garrett Bowles. So, I mean, I saw somebody there that he plays better on the left side than he does the right side. He does, but for what he is in the NFL, he's got to learn to play both. Like, he's got to be able to switch sides and everything like that. And because he's not cemented as a starter at one spot. So until you cemented as a starter at a spot, you got to play both sides. So he's got to, if he can't improve enough to play consistently at right tackle, then it's not going to bode well for him. Now, a couple other positions here, and I had a tweet about this, which is why we kind of came about this topic. And one comment I got was about Kaden Stearns and Javonte Williams. And now these are two guys that I don't really view as, over the remainder of the season, as guys who can really help ease the need at their positions. And for a few reasons, I think both players so far have already played well enough to do that. And I think that with Javonte Williams and Kaden Stearns, they're already being looked at as being starters next year. And depth was still just a question. And I don't think that's changed at all. If anything, it's just been cemented with how they've played. Stearns, he will be the guy next to Justin Simmons next year. His play was a reason why they were comfortable with moving Kareem Jackson if they got an offer that was good enough for them to move on, which they didn't. And then Javonte Williams, I mean, they traded up for him. They have high hope in him, high belief. He's going to be the starter next year. That's what he was drafted to be. That's why they moved up to get him. Like, it's been just confirmed now.
Yep. And Miguel, we really appreciate the stars coming in from you. And like I said, just everyone, man, it's been active tonight. This is great to see on a Friday night. And always enjoy doing the show here with you, Eric. It's always good conversation, man. But you're right. It's nice to see those guys. Not only they were, like I said, they were already being looked at as possible starters for next year. I mean, that's why you drafted two safeties, because you're going, we need one of you to step up and be the starter, because Kareem Jackson is not in our long-term plans here. But even there, you know, the Broncos, if they keep Vic Fangio especially, but even really any scheme these days, you have to have three good safeties. It just, with how you run nickel and dime and everything else, you need three good safeties. That's why you need about 4 or 5 good cornerbacks, because you're going to have to run extra guys out there. You're going to have guys that get nicked up at different times, and you're going to ask them to do a few different things like that. So but yeah, it's been great to see Kaden Stearns step up, and man, he made such a great play. I mean, well, I say that he cost the team yards because that was 4th down. He should have just knocked it down. But I don't blame a guy for wanting to get that interception, man. Those only come every once in a while to get those kind of opportunities. But no, he set that play up, set the quarterback up, and that's what you're going to have to do again this week. Hurts, you can set him up. He makes some really questionable throws throughout the game. Like there's going to be about 4 or 5 opportunities for the defense to make a game-changing play this week. He makes outstanding plays, and then the next one, I can't imagine being an Eagles fan right now just watching him play quarterback, because one moment you're going, man, this guy could be our future, and the next you're going, get this guy off the field now.
Now, real quick, I want to grab this comment simply because completely unrelated to football, but Dennis Woods is asking Malcolm in the chat about how he's headed to Alaska. When's the best time to come to get the best weather? Honestly, end of July to early September really is the best time to come to Alaska in terms of weather. Early July, June, you might deal with a little bit more rain, and anytime after mid-September is when fall starts to come and it starts to get a little bit colder. But Alaska's a little bit like Colorado. The weather just will be nice and sunny, one thing, and then it's just pouring rain on outside. So yeah, August is really the best month, especially. I mean, if you're coming up for fishing, if you want to go dip netting, then July, you just have to deal with a little bit of not as good of weather there for the most part. But really, fishing in August, you just can't dip net. It's pretty good as well. See a little bit of a conversation, going to change it up a little bit, about Carson Strong in the chat. Cody W. Stearns 3 more interceptions, possibly defensive rookie of the year. I mean, he's really trying to push for it, especially with how limited he's playing. It's probably still going to go to Micah Parsons just because he's playing so much more, and he's the 1st round pick, and that will play a little bit into it. Yep. But anyways, with Carson Strong, CC's coming in, and Paris is talking about it. Saw a comparison of Carson Strong to Josh Allen, and they're really nothing alike. Carson Strong, super athlete, had a lot of issues as a passer, great runner. Carson Strong is a good passer, really brings nothing as a runner. He's not a statue in the pocket. He just doesn't have much mobility. He can maneuver to the pocket decently well, but he'll often move himself into pressures. Sometimes his reads can be off, which, hey, that's going to be expected. I mean, it's every quarterback. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they even had bad reads. But my biggest concern is that there's more and more information coming about his knee injury that he had in high school and the long-term durability of it, with some talk that he won't even be able to make it through a rookie contract before his knee just fully gives out. That's my biggest concern. And without having access to that information, just the hearsay of it, it's hard because we're just trying to make a judgment based off of what little bit we hear. And trust me, there's been medical information that's leaked that's been completely wrong. Completely false. And I mean, there was one a couple of years ago where the player's agent actually reached out to me and saying how it was wrong, and I wouldn't have corrected it, but I mean, it happens. Players or teams leak false information all the time, or they leak accurate information with certain things to try to get players to fall. So that knee injury with him is something that would have to be checked out.
Right. All right. We got Peter Middleton coming in here. So if we keep Teddy next year, what's his potential contract looking like? All right, well, here's another one. So we're 9 games in. It's going to depend so much on how these last 8 games go. Yeah. If he leads the Broncos to the playoffs and continues to play at the level that he's playing at, like right now, if we took his stats over an entire season, we're looking at about a 25, 26 touchdown season to 9 interceptions, 4,000 yards, 70% completion percentage, which, I mean, those are pretty darn good numbers. Probably going to finish in about the top 12 to 14 when it comes to like quarterback rating kind of area. That's probably, if he went on the open market, some teams probably paying him 20 to 25 million. That's just the quarterback market. It's crazy. Even average guys get big money. Now for the Broncos, maybe he likes it here. Maybe he likes Shurmur if they keep Shurmur or Shula or whatever. And maybe he just likes the teammates, even if they make a coaching change. And maybe he's willing to take a little bit of a discount. I think if he plays well and leads the team to the playoffs, the Broncos would be lucky to get him probably for $18 million a year.
Yeah, I think that on it, as you said, it really depends on what happens over the rest of the season. I think the bare minimum is $12 million, and that's if he doesn't not necessarily play how he has been, but plays pretty efficiently like he has. I think that he breaks 20 million though at the very least. But really, again, depends on how much he's playing. Cost of quarterbacks is going up. It'd be nice to see him if Denver misses out on other potential veteran quarterbacks and they decide to go with the bridge to somebody in the draft. It'd be nice to see him back on that cheaper deal, but I think he's going to go for a decent amount just because of how vital quarterbacks are anymore. Speaking of quarterbacks, R. Powell says, Eric, answer the phone. It's Peyton calling you. He says, you make the pick on quarterback. Your answer will be, what does Seattle want for Russell Wilson? Like,
yeah,
honestly,
that's plan A. That's got to be plan A. I know George Payton is going around watching these different college quarterbacks, and some people are starting to get excited about that idea. He's doing due diligence. I mean, he's a smart GM. He knows what he's got to go out there and do, and he knows he's got to get a long-term answer at the quarterback position. But I think in the end, his first option is going to be go trade for one of these veterans, whether it's Rodgers, whether it's Wilson. I doubt Watson. I feel like they're pretty much just, even if he gets cleared, I don't feel like Watson wants the Broncos, and I'm not sure the Broncos are willing to pay what Houston's going to want in return anyway. So I think it's between Wilson and Rodgers. And, if that doesn't work out, then maybe it is re-sign Teddy, go get yourself a draft and see if you can build on that. I think that's probably plan B. I don't know what plan C would even be at that point.
Take the can down the road and just roll with the Teddy Bridgewater, Tyrod Taylor type as your starter.
Yeah.
That seems to be plan C, really. Which, hey, I'm all for the Tyrod Taylor plan because basically three of his last four stops, they've gone on to find their franchise quarterback. He was with the Bills, then Josh Allen came. He was with the Browns, Baker Mayfield, Chargers, Justin Herbert. So, hey, maybe we can be that 4 team out of 5 that happens with. So I'm all for it there. But it's just going to be it's rough because Denver, I mean, as you said, Denver's got to find it. People in the chat are saying it. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was never going to be the guy. And that was a big misconception for those who were talking about how he's likely to be the starter and everything. It wasn't because we thought he'd be the guy. Never really felt that he was going to turn around and be a franchise quarterback. It just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
So say they go and get a Mike McDaniel or bring in somebody of that Kyle Shanahan type offense, what quarterback from this draft do you think would be the best option for that?
Well, you need one that has a little bit of legs that can throw on the run, do well with that. It's not Carson Strong. He's not great throwing on the run. It's not Kenny Pickett. I watched him try to throw a deep one on the run, and it came up like 5 yards short yesterday. Malik Willis, I don't think would be consistent enough. Oh, man. Maybe Sam Howell. Just because, like I said, he has some legs, has some ability to get out of the pocket. He can make, when it's his first read, he can make a very accurate throw. It's after his first read that things fall apart. And the Shanahan system is set up where your first read is the guy that you scheme open. So that's why I feel like he could work well with that. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. Like, I mean, talking about Carson Strong and his mobility issues, like he just doesn't have it. Kenny Pickett, I'm not a big fan of him throwing on the run. Maybe you take a chance on all the tools that Matt Corral has.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's a good one too.
Kind of a very, not very different, but somewhat similar style with Trey Lance with being the toolsy type. Offense is very different. I mean, Matt Corral has a very easy offense that doesn't help his translation to the NFL, but his ability to run, his arm ability, like that would be a great one. Sam Howell, I think, is all right. And Desmond Ridder would be like the number 3 option for me, just because I think that he could be okay if you can, especially if you can fix his placement issues. He can be okay on those bootlegs and running that type of offense. Not the best option, but there's not a whole lot of great options for that style of offense in this class.
Yeah. Well, we got Marcus Lewis-Hinna coming in here saying, just give Teddy a 2-year contract, then bring in a young one and train him in and love from the UK. Marcus, appreciate the stars there. And, you know, it's a real possibility. That's exactly what the Broncos do. It would not surprise me one bit. You know, I think there's a chance that George Paton finds a guy that he thinks can turn into something and will fit the coaches of whoever they are. Maybe it's the same coaches, maybe it's not. But I do think George Paton still really loves Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he's always loved Teddy Bridgewater from his time in Minnesota. I think he was one of them that really pushed hard for getting him with that 6th-round trade. And I don't think Teddy's done anything to make him go, oh man, we don't like this guy from what he's done this season. I mean, I know some people look at that 4-game losing streak and be like, oh, how could they still want Teddy to be here in Denver? He's a great locker room guy. He's a guy that doesn't mind. He knows he's not a long-term solution moving forward in the NFL. Like, no team's going to view him that way. And so he knows there's probably going to be some ask of him helping train up a young guy and help them out. And he's going to be a good enough teammate to actually do that. He's not going to sit there and say, you know what, young guy, get away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. That's not his personality. And so that's why you like having those guys around. He's a quality player, quality person, and at least gives you options if the young guy's not working out.
Yeah, Charlie Beagle came in and said, we need someone with the speed of Lamar, the arm of Mahomes, and he also added the size of Josh Allen. I'd add in the brains of Peyton Manning as well to that. Just build that perfect quarterback. Unfortunately, for some weird reason, they're just so hard to find.
They don't make them in labs these days?
I mean, I wish. K-Hop came in and asked, how did Cushenberry look last game, Eric? Well, to me, he's a guy that hasn't taken tremendous steps forward as a player. He's just taken small steps, solid growth. And it's just a thing of with how Quinn Miners has looked at guard. I mean, I think that you give Cushenberry another shot next year at center, and then you continue to work with Quinn Miners there and potentially have Quinn Miners starting at right guard in place of Graham Glasgow, who's likely played his last down in Denver after suffering his leg fracture against the Cowboys. Personally, I'd really be interested in having them work with Moody to be center because his play style, I think, could be killer there. He's just got to work on the mental aspect of it, and it would do a fair job of help limit the impact of his lack of length.
Yeah. And can you imagine having Miners and Moody next to each other in the run game?
Ooh.
I mean, I can imagine defensive linemen coming up and seeing those two big boys sitting next to each other and just going, yeah, we're running right at you. Like, I mean, you could tell them we're coming at you. And they've just, I mean, those guys are bulldozers. And that'd be really fun to watch. So I mean, might as well with Moody, train him up and just see, hey, can you handle being a center?
Position versatility, it's a big thing on the offensive line nowadays. So at least give it a shot. I mean, because if he can do it, then, hey, he's bettering his chances to go out there. If not, then you still just work with him at guard. But one thing is, like, from the movie The Blind Side, when Michael Orr drives the guy over the fence, that'd be like a double team from Moody and Quinn Miners in the NFL right there. Just basically drive the guy all the way back. And those two are just such bullies on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Just do really good things for the running game. Moody just has to work on his pass protection before he's able to be a starter there. But going back to this, I mean, we've all these young guys that can fill the needs. I mean, we've really covered all of them. So let's just go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about the upcoming Eagles game, a little bit more than we have already, and get ready to get out of here. So if you guys have any last questions, go ahead and get them in there. Get those stars in, those super chats, as you to help boost your chances for the jersey giveaways as well. So the biggest thing for you for the Broncos defense in this game, besides obviously taking away the running game, the Jalen Hurts aspect to the running game, what is the biggest thing for you?
Well, I'll give one for offense and one for defense. On defense, one thing you do have to respect with this Eagles offense, beyond the run game, they got speed at the wide receiver position. I mean, you got Devonta Smith, he's quick. I guess I'd say he's more quick than he is fast, but he's still fast. He can get open in a hurry. And of course, then you got Rager. I think a lot of us really liked him in the draft for the Broncos as well. Back in that, was it the 2020 draft? I think that was the Judy draft. And I mean, I'm really happy the Broncos took Judy by all means, but I loved Rager as well because he's another guy that's quick. He can get over the top. He can win in a lot of ways. And so if you sell out to stop the run, understand one of the things that the Eagles have been able to do this year is every once in a while make great throws over the top. Now, again, Jalen Hurts, not the most accurate guy. It's either right on the money or it's an overthrow or it's an underthrow. Like it just there's more times where it's bad than it is good, but every once in a while it's good. And you just have to hope this is that game where it's not like he's just having his best game of the year, because they are an offense that can put up 30 points a game just out of nowhere. And then the next game lay an egg and put up 10 points. So there's such a variance in what they bring to the table because they have a lot of youth, just like the Broncos do on the offensive side of the ball. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think communication, like I said, it's just going to be so big in what they're doing. Like I said, back end, making sure you don't get beat over the top, front end, making sure guys aren't doing more than what their job is requiring them to do. Keep your lanes disciplined. And if you can do that, you can slow down this offense. But it is actually a pretty good offense most of the time. They got a lot of things that they can do that other teams can't.
Yeah, and one thing that you said earlier about it with the defense is that they just got to stay disciplined. They got to do what they need to do. They need to go out there and just execute their jobs. They can't be over aggressive with trying to jump routes. They got to stay disciplined and just play tight coverage, push them at the line of scrimmage, just disrupt their routes, just give the front a little bit extra time to get after Jalen Hurts, and just not let these guys with good speed to go and just get open, or quickness to get open easily and make a big play. Andrew Baker came in with some stars saying, not a big coincidence, but I believe when we beat the Eagles, we went to the Super Bowl. And then when they beat the Broncos, they went to the Super Bowl. LOL, you never know. Plus, with Cam back to the Panthers, not betting on it, though. Now, I think it's smart not to bet on it. It would be it'd be a huge shock to everyone if the Broncos managed to make the Super Bowl at this point. But can you imagine the outrage from some Broncos fans if they ended up doing that, with all the calls for Vic Fangio to be fired, for all the issues that some fans have had with this team, from the quarterback decision to coaching stuff, and they go to the Super Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater, Vic Fangio, and Pat Shurmur. Like, I think there would be a huge split in Broncos country after that, because I mean, we're already seeing it. There's already a lot of fans who are really making it known where they stand with the Dallas Cowboys win. They're not happy they won that game because of certain aspects to it. So it'll definitely be interesting. Now, for me, as I said, on the defense side of the ball, it's discipline. On the offensive side of the ball, it's execution. They got to go out there. They got to execute up front on the offensive line. Fletcher Cox, despite him being handcuffed in the scheme, which, I mean, can we just cross off Jonathan Gannon from the Broncos head coaching list, please?
Please,
Please,
don't,
like, watch
don't bring that guy in.
But watching him, he still can make an impact. And just, we got to go out there, the Broncos do, and they got to go out and execute up front. Quinn Miners, I mean, he's a rookie going against a veteran, and that's always a concern because Fletcher Cox has plenty of that veteran savviness to his game that can still go and just bring out a huge game from him by overlooking, by just dominating the rookie. Dalton Reiser's got to play a clean game. We need Noah Fant to step up play as a blocker. Like, they got to go out there. They got to execute their matchups. They got to win and just help this team be what they wanted to be. Help this offense be what they wanted to be. A running offense that can do enough through the air to just keep the ball moving and put points on the board.
Yep. For sure. And, thankfully, like I said, the offense is finally, I know the offensive line isn't healthy. It's kind of weird. Offensive line's been healthy most of the year. And all the weapons were hurt. And now some of the weapons are starting to come back and the offensive line's getting hurt. So it just kind of, they seem to be breaking down there a little bit. And we have Peter Middleton coming in here saying, who is our speedster at wide receiver now? Probably
I think
Jerry Jeudy's the fastest. Well, no, Hinton. Maybe.
I mean, I don't know off of the 40 times, but Cortland Sutton has been quite fast this year, and he's hit some high speeds pretty often. So I'm not sure who the fastest is, but Denver still has some speed at there. Not KJ Hamler type speed, but still some speed there. Claude comes in with Go Broncos. Thank you for the stars, Claude. We appreciate that. CC came in and mentioned Javon Hargrave in the pass rush is quite scary. He was. The last few weeks watching the Eagles, I believe since week 5, he's really been shut down as a pass rusher. 7 total pressures in the 4 games, which, hey, for an interior defensive lineman of his size, it's still okay. But he's not winning the way he used to. Teams have found out ways to kind of shut him down. It's showing on tape. And it's just kind of being passed along to the next team by watching it. So unless he can figure out a trick to it, I mean, hopefully Denver can go out there, and of course comes down to executing their matchups up front, that they're able to execute and kind of somewhat keep them out of the game. Cody W with $2 donation said Eagles are built like the Cowboys. In some ways, yeah. But there's definitely some, as with every team, there's enough uniqueness there that is what makes the Eagles enough of a threat to potentially beat the Broncos.
Yeah, I'd say both teams on defense thrive off of turnovers. I mean, that's what they're playing for. That's why they're kind of doing the bend but don't break. They want to have you make a mistake as you trickle down the field. Pun intended, using your name. but no, they are. That's kind of what they're set up to do. I'd say the Cowboys have a little bit more firepower in how they can attack on defense compared to the Eagles. The Eagles are just lacking talent on defense, especially in that back 7. That's where they're pretty darn weak. They got a couple decent players. I mean, Darius Slay, but he's not even what he used to be. I've watched him get beat quite a few times there with the Eagles this year. Teams are not afraid to throw at him, and he was their big free agent signing out there. And then offensively, I mean, Cowboys are further along because Jalen Hurts is not Dak Prescott by any means, and I'd say the weapons of the Cowboys are more proven than what the Eagles bring. But they do have some similarities in how they try to attack teams for sure. And then, of course, the run game for what the Cowboys have with Ezekiel Elliott. Miles Sanders is just not Ezekiel Elliott. And I'd say Bernard Pollard, or is it Pollard? That's the Cowboys backup running back.
Tony Pollard?
Yeah, Tony Pollard. Yeah. He's an underrated running back. I think people don't realize how good he could actually – I think he could be a starter for a lot of teams. But anyway – There's some similarities in what they bring to the table for sure. We got Travis Weber saying, great show, Eric and Carl. Have a good night, Broncos country. Enjoy your weekend, and you do the same. And hopefully it is all of us celebrating this week. Another Broncos victory, 3 in a row, and getting a little momentum going into the bye week. And I got Kevin G coming in with the super chat saying, how do you think George Paton has done so far? Pickups, trades, a little bit of everything.
Actually, Kevin, I have an article up at milehighhuddle.com that you can go check out about that. And somebody asked earlier too, there is also an article about offensive tackles up. I think it was R. Powell There's an article up on milehighhuddle.com as well about offensive tackles for this. But Kevin, to answer your question, I think he's done fairly well. And I mean, the article really breaks down pretty much all the moves that he's made, all the trades, some of the more smaller moves, not so much, but it definitely gives my take on it. And he's been solid. I mean, some questionable moves there. I still question the whole thing with the picking up that running back from the Ravens over Royce Freeman, like saying it was special teams. Like that was just a weird sequence to me. Just something that I just guess I can't grasp. But for the most part, I mean, he's done pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say free agency is where he did his worst. I mean, who of his free agents is making the biggest impact? Saubert?
Honestly, Ronald Darby, but that's just because of
compared to when we're weighing contract into the conversation. Fuller thankfully had a good game this last week, and maybe he continues that trend and starts earning what his contract is. Darby had a good week, so I'll give him that. But both those guys were kind of we expect you guys to be stars for this defense, and neither of them have quite lived up to that billing so far. Darby a little because of injury. I understand that.
I was saying Darby because just exposure. He's had more exposures than everybody else, and his play hasn't been terrible. But when you factor in exposure and contract, honestly, probably Shamar Stephen.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one too. Like I said, that's my one area where just guys haven't made as much of an impact as you were hoping they'd make this season. His trades have been outstanding here, especially late in the season. I mean, obviously, Weatherly and Kenny Young are both pretty good impact players in the couple games they've been with the Broncos. We'll see if that continues. And obviously, his draft class has been outstanding. I mean, when you're getting about, I think it's 6 guys who are consistent contributors on offense and defense, that's doing pretty darn good. Javonte Williams looking like the best new young running back in the NFL. That's great. Patrick Surtain looking like a really good cornerback moving forward for the Broncos. That's great. Kaden Stearns looking like he should be a starter next season. I mean, like I said, you can go down the list of all that he did there in the draft, and you like what you've seen. But, of course, everything is going to come down to, for George Paton, can you solve the quarterback position? You can have 3 great drafts where you got a lot of players who are great, and if you don't solve the quarterback position, unfortunately, you still will probably be viewed as a failure.
Yeah. Well, guys, before we get out of here, since we've hit over that hour mark, just a few quick things for us. Remember, you guys can follow us on Twitter at Erick Trickel for myself, and then at Carl Dumler MHH. You can also follow the Dove Valley Deep Divers pod at DVDD_pod. And of course, the mother account, the mothership of all Mile High Huddle stuff at Mile High Huddle. That's where you get access to all the articles, all the YouTube videos, all the shows, except for the Facebook exclusive shows for the Facebook subscribers. If you guys are able to and want to go get some holiday gifts for your family, for yourself, huddleuppod.com to get some of the merchandise for all the Huddle Up pod shows. Obviously, you got all the stuff with the football priests, you got the Building the Broncos, you got Broncos for breakfast, and of course the Valley Deep Divers and Mile High Insiders. You guys can go get all sorts of stuff there. And then if you want access to those Facebook exclusive shows, the Broncos Book Club, Kelvin's Corner, and the Trickle Zone, which is on Mondays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, you go to facebook.com/MileHighHuddle, click on the blue subscribe button and become a supporter there. And if you guys aren't able to help the shows financially, which, hey, we understand with everything going on in the world and times can be tough, especially with the holidays coming up, you guys can subscribe on all of the services. I have Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, all of that. You guys can like the show and as well as share it and leave reviews for them as well, which also gives a big boost to us for exposure and a big, easy, simple way to help us out. We thank you guys for joining us tonight and for consistently joining us all on Friday nights and supporting all the shows pretty consistently. James Grossman came in with Love the Show, fellas, and especially Erick's analysis articles. Hey, James, I appreciate that, and thank you for joining in. It's always nice to hear compliments. It helps boost my ego, which really doesn't need any boosting. But Carl, before we get out of here, any last words?
No, just thank you guys again. I mean, these shows have always been great and always great conversation. You guys ask great questions, and it it makes me appreciate what we've got here in this community. That it's not just a lot of fighting back and forth, but it is actually digging into these teams. And, this is the Deep Divers. Of course, I do Building the Broncos. We love to build it, or to dig into the roster and what this team's looking like for now and the future. And you guys do a great job of leading that conversation for us. So appreciate it once again. And like I said, I can't wait to see how Sunday goes. And hopefully it is us celebrating heading into this bye. The Broncos 6-4. Right there in the playoff talk. Man, it's been a few years since we've been in this kind of spot.
Being able to, as I said at the start of the show, being able to sweep any division is always great, whether it be your own division, whether it be the other AFC division you play against, or the division on the NFC that you play against now. Like, whatever the case may be, it's always great feeling for that. And being able to do that as you go into the bye week for this Broncos team that had that skid and they're really trying to change things around and turn around, being able to help go in with an identity, sweeping them with the win could be tremendous as they go forward. Nathan came in with a $1.99 donation and a super sticker. Nathan, thank you for joining us. And unfortunately, we got to get out of here. As much fun as it was sitting here chatting Broncos, I'll be back next week, maybe with Lance Anderson. He might be back from being a caveman by then or not. But thank you guys for joining us, and have a wonderful night and a great weekend.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.